Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jose Levy. Jose will be today's presenter and will discuss the topic of achieving more with business architecture and strategic portfolio management. This webinar is a new addition to our extensive library covering all manner of project and portfolio management topics. So if you enjoy this video, we welcome you to view the others we have available on the OnePlan YouTube channel and also our website. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again, and I'll now turn the presentation over to Jose.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks everyone for joining today. We're going to be talking about achieving more with business architecture and strategic portfolio management. This is a topic near and dear to our hearts, and especially since we just released additional capabilities to OnePlan in order to address strategic portfolio management fully. So I want to get started with the big picture from Gartner that kind of tells us the components of strategic portfolio management. And there's really three of them. The first is strategic execution management, and that's really defining portfolio management from the perspective of objectives, key results, any type of strategic framework that you might be employing in your organization, and then understanding the impact of investments in different portfolios on that strategy definition. The second is more of the traditional enterprise program and portfolio management. You have different portfolios in the organizations that are defined either by product, by organizational structure, business unit, and they get defined as part of a planning cycle. And you have, you can deconstruct them further into programs, for instance, and projects, epics. In the OnePlan solution, we focus on adaptive portfolio because we incorporate not only traditional waterfall methods, but also Agile. And then finally, the third one is integrated IT portfolio analysis. And this is kind of the new component that we've added to our offering, where we're looking at enterprise architecture, business architecture, and establishing relationships to future state models of the organization, and also relationships with the enterprise portfolio and the strategic execution model. So you're looking at the entire picture of what it's going to take to move the organization forward with respect to an initiative or a change initiative or an improvement initiative. Now below there are other components. And OnePlan does a great job of integrating really any work from any solution. So it's not only the three components that make up strategic portfolio management, but if you happen to have product development in another organization and those initiatives need to connect to the enterprise portfolio, you can do that also. So from our standpoint, again, the SPM is defined by the three major blocks, but there's a lot of other work and initiatives that can be incorporated. So another reference slide, this came out last year, and I thought it's a great picture that kind of shows if you want to achieve strategy, you actually have to have alignment and connection to all these other disciplines, and they might be executed or in charge by different business units in the organization or by different functional areas, but in the end, the connection needs to be made. And within the context of business architecture, it resides within enterprise architecture, although more and more, and this is a trend, business architecture in itself is kind of separating from enterprise architecture. Traditionally, it's always been there as part of the architecture development frameworks, but the discussion of and the focus on business architecture is gaining more importance within organizations. And so, while it's here within enterprise architecture, it does have to be kind of called out. The other component is that you'll see that we have portfolio management that touches on pretty much, all the other components. Delivery and program management, also important. Here's where, you could be talking about traditional or Agile frameworks. And let's not forget governance, which again takes different forms. If you're talking about a traditional PMO or Lean Agile Center of Excellence or a program office. In terms of the solutions, OnePlan introduced this year the three components of strategic portfolio management. So we have specific configurations and templates to address the three scenarios, and it just depends how your organization is actually addressing it. It could be that you're doing strategic execution management and enterprise portfolio management. You might not have the integrated IT portfolio analysis. So we have the ability to address all three, and it really depends on your readiness and the focus. Obviously, the one in the middle demands that the IT organization has high level of readiness. In other words, there is some focus on enterprise architecture, business architecture. You are addressing all of the different components of, you're already managing technology, data, infrastructure, and business architecture. But is there a repository? Can we actually focus on making the connections between the three? And that's part of what we want to support your organization, which making sure that you can address all three different scenarios. Within IT portfolio analysis solutions, you can actually have individual focal points, whether it's an overall enterprise architecture management because you have a practice and you have enterprise architects within your organization. Whether you're doing IT portfolio modernization, and usually the most common way that is taking place is through cloud modernization, when you're actually taking all of your technology infrastructure and apps and moving them to the cloud. So there's a lot of analysis that can be done in order to optimize that and focus on the right technology, data, and apps that are going to support the business. So and finally, probably the most common and easiest is to do application portfolio management, because there is a list of applications that you're currently managing. They have to go through their own life cycle. They have impact on the initiatives that you have internally, and it's probably the easiest way to initiate what would be integrated IT portfolio analysis. So if there is a takeaway, if you're not doing portfolio management right now, seriously consider it. And it's probably the easiest way to get into this pillar within strategic portfolio management. So just some high level kind of overview of what we're talking about here. So I chose Netflix as an example because it's probably one that's most known to folks, and we know it also as a net new organization, in the sense that they structured themselves entirely to deliver. After they in effect closed down the DVD delivery business and decided to go 100% streaming, they restructured their organization to do that. And in order to do that, they're not really managing themselves in terms of a standard organizational structure. So we all know, an organizational chart, and I just picked one here again from a public domain that kind of shows all the different areas of the organization that are being managed, from the two co-CEOs all the way down to VP of Strategy and Partnerships to VP of Business Development. It just keeps going down and down. And what we have is, a formal org structure. And really, this has been well documented, and I put, Kotter's dual operating system here just to highlight that what we're talking about in business architecture and enterprise architecture is having an abstraction where we can represent how we deliver value to customers. That's kind of the easiest way of doing it. We're building models that represent what we do within our organizations, that are a better depiction of how we take an input and we actually deliver value to organizations. That's a very abstract statement that I said there. The lower kind of graphic attempts to lay out really what's going on, which is you have a series of supporting activities and you have a series of primary activities that are going to be laid out in the form of value stream and capabilities. Here's the two important terms within business architecture, and that how we define those depicts how we operate as an organization, what our strengths are, what's our secret sauce in terms of how we take value and deliver it to our customers. And when I say customer, it could be internal or external. The easiest way, although it's not the same, they often get confused, they're not the same thing, but customer journeys would be another way of getting closer to the concept of a value stream. So the takeaway is Netflix doesn't operate in terms of its org structure. It operates in terms of its value streams and capabilities. And in their particular case, they're a great example of how they were able to define what are development value streams. They're, obviously great case study of how their development lifecycle through DevOps has allowed them to, achieve a high degree of value delivery to all customers. So some data points in terms of business architect survey results. In other words, what do business architects say that are the top usage scenarios for business architecture? And this is provided by Wendy Kuhn at S2E Transformation. She's a founder of the Business Architecture Guild, which I'll talk about in a second. Excellent thinker, and influencer in terms of business architecture. Again, she's a founder of the domain, and so within the Business Architecture Guild. Sorry, and so she's very knowledgeable and has been in the in the industry many years. So you can see that what struck me the most was that strategy execution and business IT alignment for business architecture are the number one and number two. Business transformation and digital transformation follow. So what this is saying is, in terms of how business architecture can add value to your organization, in terms of being able to align and deliver value through strategy realization, that's the the number one use case for business architecture. And you see the other ones also are very related to the current state of affairs in terms of business agility and how organizations have to move faster by being able to again execute and deliver value to their customers. In terms of the focus areas where we need to improve, or where business architecture is heading, creating a business architecture baseline, formally defining the role of the business architect. So all of these are practice priorities within organizations that kind of show how business architecture is growing and needs to continue demonstrating how it delivers value to organizations, again, by these use cases that are here. The statement is, have we crossed the chasm with business architecture? I would say yes, and I'll show in a second why. There's convergence of a lot of different frameworks, of a lot of different best practices that are, really leading all organizations to, define their business architecture. So as an example, within Enterprise Agile, even SAFe Scale Agile framework has included the concept of operational value streams versus development value streams. So the development value stream, which supports delivering digital solutions, is supporting the operational value stream, which is again where we define the value that we create within our organizations. And this is SAFe 5.1. So again, SAFe has evolved to the point where this is incorporated within the SAFe framework. If we go to the next slide, there's another trend that's within all organizations, value stream management within software development value stream. So how can we use concepts of lean and flow within our software development lifecycle? And here's just a depiction of how, again, you need to have your operational value stream defined, which is supported by a development value stream, which in itself is trying to optimize to deliver, again, if you have a customer with a feature, how do we get it through our development value stream and get that feature to the customer quicker so that we can generate greater revenue, greater satisfaction for our customers. So we're now getting to the point of having to define these elements. And if the next topic we're going to talk about, how do we, if we are defining our value streams and our capabilities, when we invest, we're actually investing in making change to optimize these and making change and improving the solutions that are being shown here, which are our Agile release trains that have applications that have to be maintained, developed, upgraded, and they're represented from a process standpoint by our software development value stream. So it all kind of comes all together. Again, taking that picture of that dual operating system. So it's not an org structure, it's a value stream, and deconstructing it and seeing how technology, in this case, is going to support through a development value stream, the operational value stream. So there's a lot of good foundation for all this. This is all new, not new, by the way. It's been around for a good 20 years or greater in some cases. There's 3 organizations that have worked hard to kind of harmonize concepts. The enterprise architecture is well known by TOGAF, which is managed by the Open Group, and there's an architecture development method. A lot of TOGAF certified folks. This is kind of the traditional historic way of looking at enterprise architecture. Heavy formal, I would say. Yes, it's gotten better, but we're still talking about TOGAF. Within TOGAF itself, there's bubble B, if you would. Set B is the business architecture. So there is a focus on business architecture through the Business Architecture Guild, and there is a BizBoc, the BizBoc guide, which we're on 10. Very heavy, very good reference, very good knowledge base based on years of experience of business architects. How it actually gets applied in your organization, might be different based on your context and your level of readiness. So what I'm saying is, it's not to be taken and consumed and implemented as stated. You really, take the better practice and implement based on your on your level of readiness and your maturity for business architecture. Object Manager Group has a stronger relationship with the business architecture. Again, there's a lot of harmonizing of concepts, terms, in order to make sure that when we talk about value stream, the 4 core business domains, value stream, and capabilities, that when you see that within the Business Architecture Guild BizBoc, it's the same thing that it is within the Open Group. It's the same thing that it is within Object Management Group. There's slight differences, but generally the same, and that helps when you're actually trying to build your repository. I will note that there's a lot of other supporting business domains. So strategy, as was highlighted in the survey, is showing here as an important connection. Also products, which we're going from a project to product model in most organizations. Initiatives, which is where we have our investment. So a lot to reference and use. You're not starting from scratch. And where all this leads us is really that what we're trying to do is support the organization in defining that future state. Where are we today, and where do we need to go, and what are the initiatives that need to take place in order for us to do that? So I list here the business architecture macro scenarios that are provided in the BizBoc guide, and the connection here to strategic portfolio management is, and when you're doing every one of these things, every scenario needs to be connected to your OKRs, your objectives and key results. So again, now we're talking about strategic execution. Your investment portfolio, which is the EPPM scenario that I referenced earlier. And then we get into business architecture and the technology solution, infrastructure data, which is represented by business architecture and enterprise architecture. So what we're saying here is that when you're going to enter into these scenarios where you're trying to define your future enterprise model, you need to be able to connect and to these connect your investments and your strategy to that future state model. So enough with the references. This has been stated before, but one way of representing business architecture and that dual operating system by Carter is business architecture is really the Google Maps of an organization. You're not going to look at the org structure. You're going to try to see the detail of where everything is in terms of how everything is connected. and how you can go from point A to point B by looking at that alignment and those connections between business architecture, technology, data, and applications. Okay, so here's, I use this a lot to talk about transformation, and it's the closest thing to a transformation use case that I have. So I'm sure there's better graphics, but what we're highlighting here is how, in the case of OnePlan, we have had the ability to define, your strategy. So you have your objectives and key results, KPIs, goals, whatever your model, your framework is. We recommend objectives and key results because it's easier, not necessarily easier to implement, but from conceptualizing, what we're trying to do is something that most organizations can understand. From here, you're going to be defining a strategic portfolio. So, and that might deconstruct itself into a portfolio, into programs, into projects, and those investments are impacting. Okay, they're changing something within the organization. So what the better practice is actually to incorporate where exactly, how do we model that change and that relationship between the strategic portfolio and everything else that's happening in the organization? Because again, we don't run off of a org structure, we run out of a model, and the model is going to be represented by value stream and value stages, is going to be represented by business function and services. In this case, again, it's open to how your organization models itself. We're going to have features. We're going to have applications that that are going to be that are being developed, and then we have a technology and IT infrastructure. Again, that could include APIs. It could include data, cloud, and so on. So what we're doing here is trying to, again, establish that connection between we invested, we deconstructed it into programs. What are the projects impacting? And all of this has to tie back to our objectives and key results. So what we're trying to do is do a better job of establishing the relationship of impact that we're having in order to make a better decision on which investments to make, because we have a better idea of what we're impacting from value stream or capabilities. So that's essentially the benefit of including business architecture within your strategic portfolio. So in terms of making that connection, and I'll go into some more specific use cases. Are your projects aligned with your strategy approved by IT and EA? That's kind of the first one. Does enterprise architecture and business architecture within your organization know what is taking place? Have you defined your strategy in terms of capabilities? There's a concept, and it's not new. It's capability-based strategic planning. Have you assessed your capabilities internally after defining them and determine whether initiatives need to be defined in order to improve those organizational capabilities? Have you gone further and done alignment of your strategy execution value streams? So your OKRs, as defined by your strategy, and your value stream for metrics, is there any relationship? When you get down more to the IT domain, how we map our projects to applications. So there's initiatives that are going to be deconstructed into projects. So do we understand what the impact on the applications are going to be? Do we understand if projects are investing in the right IT areas? Again, looking at that future state, target state. And do we understand the impact of our projects, project delivery? In other words, do we have outdated technology, security vulnerabilities that we're facing by going into these initiatives? There's more of a risk and compliance and security standpoint. So if you're able to make the connection, these are the benefits that you can obtain for your organization. So I'm gonna did a couple polls here, so I'm gonna see. Let's go ahead and do one of the polls just to break the ice. And okay, so real simple. Does your organization have capabilities defined? I've closed the poll, but you can see here that we have a fair amount of representation of folks that do have capabilities defined, and that's probably the an easier first step than doing the next question I'm going to ask, which is on value streams. So thank you for answering that. Let's go into our second poll, which is, does your organization manage value streams? So this is the harder one because depending on where you are in the organization and who you ask and whether you actually have an enterprise architecture practice, it might be harder to come to consensus on value streams. Although I would say that there's a lot of reference value streams out there, so you can actually start from a reference point and then move into a formal definition of value streams. So as expected, a lot of organizations are have not gone through and defined value streams. I think this is going to become more important as digital grows and your digital products grow. As I showed, the whole development value stream management initiatives that are going on in order to optimize delivery of digital products. It will drive definition of the operational value stream that it supports. And then finally, one more, just to see if everybody's awake. Does your organization have business architects or manage business architecture? So I would say this is encouraging because we have, if we combine the yes and then the part of IT not managed exclusively, I'll take that as a representation of business architecture within your organization. So I think that's encouraging because it puts you in a position to be able to combine these better practices and have a better picture of the impact your strategic portfolio is having. So thank you everyone for participating. Okay, so just some examples, and I'm about to get into the solutioning part of OnePlan and Smart 360. Capability-based investments is probably, as a lot of you answered, we do have capabilities defined. So the ability to align to initiatives in order to, do a survey and rate our capability, and then see the applications that actually support that and be able to invest around them. That's important, and and a good first step in terms of being able to address that scenario for strategic portfolio management. Once you do the analysis, you can measure value added versus strategic value, and determine where investments need to be made. Looking at the importance and funding of applications, for instance, in this case, and seeing where maybe upgrades, improvements can be made as part of overall initiatives. Project assessments, if you're looking at again establishing those connections, what is how does that project and its application landscape and technology landscape, how is that operating within IT? Is there risks that we're assuming? So all of that can be done through incorporating enterprise architecture management and business architecture. This is one I like most because not doing some projects can have a huge impact on your priorities, and something that might be as simple as a centralization initiative, for instance, here, the one that I always highlight, is actually connected to many different capabilities. So if we happen to not do that project for whatever reason, we could be actually sacrificing our improvement initiatives of the capabilities. So having the ability to do that alignment exercise and understand impact is critical. So, the next one is understanding the operating model, and I've talked already about, mapping or defining your capabilities and having the ability to understand the relationships, data modeling and data flow. What in this case, we're looking at the meta model of an organization, application portfolio management, and I'll show it in a second. But that is the first step to then be able to establish the connections of data flows and integrations, and flow information flow through all of the different APIs and interfaces between applications. So some common scenarios, and now we're getting into more into the true EA, which is technology, infrastructure, data, in addition to business architecture. So how do we get started? Well, I'm going to show you in a second how we use OnePlan together with Smart 360, and the best way, if you don't happen to have a business architecture or enterprise architecture area, is just to start with the data that you have. And even if you do, and you have repository, do not have a repository, this is critical for being able to do that alignment. So we're going to take your data. It could be in Excel, CSV, load it, and then start doing analysis in order to identify gaps, complexities, and those relationships with your enterprise portfolio. So OnePlan and Smart 360, these are two solutions that come together now in order to deliver strategic portfolio management. And what we're adding is that enterprise repository for being able to connect your portfolios, programs, projects to business architecture, technology, data, and applications. So you at the end, what you have is a central source of truth. Everyone can actually reference and appreciate the relationship between all of the different elements and the value that is being derived from investments. It's a highly collaborative process. In other words, you can have perspectives given to portfolio managers and project managers, again, on everything that projects are impacting from that technology landscape and that application landscape. And it's all about the insights. So there has to be focus on quality data so that we can have visualizations. So if anything that business architecture is about modeling, enterprise architecture is about visualizations to be able to see how everything is connected. So what you're looking at is OnePlan. So for those of you that have never been in our solution, OnePlan has a number of different areas on the left-hand navigation that represent components of what we're actually managing. There is on the right series of views areas that give us, we can do it list views, board views, board views, roadmap views, and dashboarding, which is our link to Power BI. In this case, I'm looking at a strategic portfolio application. You could have more than one, but here we've you can see that I could have different what we call groups, but I have one focused just on strategic portfolio. So the first thing that we've done, you have what's called a planning hierarchy, and I've combined what are traditional EPPMO components, portfolio, program, project, and epics. For effect, here we separate what are project waterfall projects from what are agile epics. And then I've also added the components from my EA strategy, and you can also separate them. In other words, I have for my enterprise architecture, again, for components that are being brought from Smart 360, which is again a component that we've added to OnePlan. They are all mapped here. So I was talking about value streams and capabilities. Here I have my list of value streams and capabilities. I could be rating them, by the way, and defining them through surveys. I could be stating whether they're is a current architecture or target architecture. And as with all items that you define within OnePlan, what you can have is, the definition of, in this case, of a value stream. So, and what we're showing here is information that is actually coming from Smart 360. So I'll show it in a second. But what we're bringing this in order to be able to establish, like I said, those relationships. So we have associated capabilities and associated applications to the value stream. Okay, and even to the whole product, the product that we're managing here. So the product actually is made up of applications, which is supporting this capability. And it could be, in this case, tracking flow metrics, for instance. So I could do that here. I have I'm actually going to a target maturity level with this value stream. I have a life cycle for it. I mean, there's really no limitation in terms of what you can do for making sure that you have the metadata that's coming from your repository into OnePlan. If you wanted to, again, these are just features of OnePlan. You could be tracking financials or investments on it, or even work plan or projects that are being done on this value stream. I'll go back to my lesson. You can see here that again, for illustrative purposes, we have two value streams. We have a number of different capabilities. We have a number of different applications. And then products that we're managing. So this is the enterprise architecture component of it, but really that is actually coming from, I'll go back to portfolio, our enterprise architecture tool. And this is Smart 360. In this case, it's been integrated within our dashboard tab, but essentially the definition of every one of those elements is shown here within this tool. We're integrating them into OnePlan in order to do portfolio management, which I'll go back in a second. But I just wanted to highlight that all of that data within my enterprise architecture is coming from the model that we've defined. So this is where your business architecture, business process, business mapping, business unit, product, and value streams are going to be showing. So we're going to, create them, establish the relationships between all the different components, and then be able to do the analysis. And we'll go back to Smart 360 in a second. Be able to do the analysis of what is, project prioritization against our application. So here's where, the real value of having all the data together. I'm trying to do a prioritization scenario, and I'm trying to determine the impact on my applications from doing these investments. And you can see here that we've actually associated them, because at every point here we have a proposed project that's called test dates. We have our application. We could be, okay, is this part of e-payments? We'll make it part of e-payments. And we can see here if this actually was impacting strategy objectives and key results. You can see that here. The actual business case, if we have a business case narrative, it's probably not a good project because it doesn't have all of the data set completed. But you can see that at the project level, I have everything that I need, and you can see here that I have the capability mapped. So within my strategy for this project, I can associate how is this impacting a value stream and application. Obviously, if it's impacting a capability, then you will have a relationship to a value stream, because that's what capabilities will support a value stream. So I have everything that I need to be able to make a decision. And then if I come back here, I can say, well, if I go by prioritization score, these are my the actual scores of the projects. Okay. And so I have here, if you remember, I was making reference to the centralization of IT initiative. It's not the highest rated project. In terms of its budget and benefits, it looks good. But do we, if we're going to focus on our top 10 projects, do we really want to have centralization of IT be 13, since this includes cloud initiatives? So we'll answer that question in a second. But here, what we're doing is trying to see exactly, how our projects are associated to applications. I could do the same thing probably from a starting point in terms of capabilities. So again, I could look at my my ranking, my prioritization scores, and again, centralization of IT is 13. Do we want to keep it there based on the capabilities that that is supporting it? You can see here that it's supporting a large set of capabilities. So do we want to keep it? We have 4 different capabilities here that are being impacted when we do this project. I added one additional one here just to see. You could also add, your value stream. So, if you are, especially the ones that are customer facing, do we have to be pay particular attention? Which ones are the ones that are quote to cash, for instance, that drive how we are actually going to generate revenue from our operations. And again, we can see the capabilities, we can see the value stream, and we can see, interestingly enough, that centralization of IT is one that falls within that. So if our focus is on the value stream, again, we might want to make sure that we don't sacrifice this project. By the way, you note some icons here, so you can bring in work from other planning solutions, other work solutions. Here we have projects that are being done in Project Professional, but they could be done directly within OnePlan, and also for Epic's Agile work from Azure DevOps or Jira. So, and every one of these items, in fact, let's go to centralization of IT. You can see that we have the details, the financials, the resource plan, the work plan itself of what's going to be delivered, and some reporting. But if we wanted to evaluate this and then see its impact on within our enterprise architecture, here's where the project itself, the project form would reside. And you can see here, again, the alignment to the EA strategy, our value stream, our applications, and our associated capabilities. So we might not want to, we want to be careful also not to impact these applications when we consider our funding. So getting back to our repository, let's go here. And the repository, we've gone through and defined all of our applications. So we'll go ahead and see, just so that you can appreciate how you can literally come in and view all of the richness, all of the relationships that that have been defined. Who are the users? What are the business mappings? Business object associations, capabilities, and at any point you can let's go into this specifically, and from a different perspective, looking at the capability balance accounts, and again, peeking and seeing, okay, what are the impacts? Who's accountable? What is its status? So the surveys will have already gone out, and you're actually assessing and determining value and complexity status for every one of these. And I can easily go into one specifically, and then come in, and this is again the benefit of having an enterprise architecture repository, where it's very easy to come in and make definitions. If this one doesn't have an owner, so I could be defining an owner, could define myself as an owner. If there's an additional, by the way, application that needs to be added, you could add it here directly. Or sorry, an additional relationship. Here we are in an application. So here's my business mappings, capabilities that we're supporting for each of these. So after have built our repository, this is where the source information resides, and then we are mapping it to within OnePlan in order to make our portfolio decisions. And you can see that all of the relationships, interfaces, and now we're getting into the technology and infrastructure components that that are part of defining an application. So likewise, we could be doing the same for other elements within our model, and you can see here that there's really no limitation, and this is representative in terms of what we have. Our value streams, which we were looking at, our procure to pay and our quote to cash are here. So anything that has to be defined within the repository for the value streams you could be doing here directly, and that's what that information is integrated into OnePlan. So why do we do this? We do this for purposes of doing better investments within our portfolio, and it's really about our visualizations. So let's see, what's a good one? Capabilities and projects. This is the one that I was referring to earlier, where we have capabilities, applications, and projects. And the key question on centralization of IT you see here is impacting exchange trade, is impacting order execution, order clearing, pretty much almost every one of our capabilities. So we should really be careful not to not to sacrifice this project, because we're going to be impacting a lot of different capabilities. So this has to do with centralization of IT, having a lot of cloud components as part of the initiative. But we can keep going down and seeing, you can see all the different types of visualizations that we can do. Let's go ahead and select another one. Project by strategic driver. So some strategic drivers that we've defined, and how are the projects, operational projects, excellence, green IT, social, and cloud enabled. So the projects from OnePlan are actually coming into Smart 360. So we can then establish these relations that we can see here. Centralization of IT, by the way, which is the one that we've been focusing on, belongs to the operational, our operational strategic driver. So let's go to another one of our saved visualizations. Very standard, list in terms of our project. What's the application that we're hitting, and what's the capability? Similar to what we have in OnePlan, but you can also do that here. Capability portfolio. So in terms of our capability portfolio, what's strategic value? Exchange rate has the highest strategic value as a capability, and decision support has the lowest. This has probably something we need to probably improve in terms of our investment. It's way very, very low, and it probably has to do a lot with supporting executives in doing that. And you have the ability here not to have this perspective and take it as part of our investment portfolio. You can see that clearing has the highest investment, and right around in the middle in terms of our strategic value. So what I want to do is, let's go to another repository. So you see here, this is more of a standard landscape diagram where we're seeing applications, and we are applications in the center. We're actually seeing business mapping, so business unit mappings, and then the process on the y-axis. So from here, we can try to look for you're trying to look for empty spaces or duplicate spaces. Here we see SAP as a primary application for controlling. So and that's our ERP. So we can't really do there. If they have ratings, by the way, we could color code this to show the ratings. But we can see here, the CRM applications within customer management and customer strategy. Those are fairly important. When you're doing your target architecture, if you're taking applications out, decommissioning applications, you can start seeing what the impact is on your specific process and business areas. And let's see if we have, you can see that what the part of an implementation is, making sure that we are actually defining what your visualizations are going to be based on the data, and then having that on a continuous basis for you to leverage when you're making decisions. These are app dependencies. So in terms of, what are the relationships between applications and the interfaces that they have? So market analysis is dependent on ERP, which actually has an integration, and you can go through and see the one that has the highest or lowest level of dependencies. CRM is here. We talked about that. Our SAP, our ERP is over here with. Here we have a data warehouse, obviously, taking inputs and outputs to other applications. So if you've gone through and defined the your elements in the repository, then the end goal is to have these visualizations ready for you. And here we have all of the elements that we're managing within this repository. All right, so I've given you a quick overview. I'm going to go ahead and close since we're coming to. So I hope everyone, you were able to see, the value of having these different perspectives connected. So, as a recommendation, you should be including business architecture and technology components for having the complete perspective of your strategic portfolio. There's a couple of ways of doing it, but one easy way is, okay, start planning your strategy based on changes to your capabilities. And how can we improve as an organization by rating our capabilities and defining initiatives based on improving them. And from there, you will cascade into applications that are supporting those capabilities, and from there you can move up and get to operational value streams by also looking at your development value stream for those applications. So it's a relatively straightforward first step. You have current data within your ITSM or CMDB, and then we literally load and establish those relationships within Smart 360, and then include that within your project portfolio, portfolio program project defined in strategic portfolio management. So yes, evolving is it takes time, and but you can iterate through it, and an easy first step, again, starting with capabilities and applications. So in terms of OnePlan, for those that have not been introduced to us, we are a Microsoft Gold partner, full service provider in the portfolio space, portfolio and project management space. We have been partner of the year in the past. We're currently the partner of the year for Microsoft. This is, our focus is business agility transformation, and we have different solutions I just highlighted. And we cover, in terms of your requirements, from the actual technology solution to advisory services. In most cases, we support customers over the long term in improving portfolio management as a competency, and I think that's really important. It's not just the technology, is making sure that you're making better decisions, you're getting value from building portfolio management itself as a capability in your organization. So we have trials of both solutions, so feel free, you can go with an app source and find them, and you can, whether you're started a journey for strategic portfolio management or have something in place already, we can start with either from a portfolio management standpoint or enterprise architecture, business architecture standpoint, and then do the connection in order for you to get that the picture of the entire picture from strategic portfolio management. Please give us a call, and also be on watch for emails with our latest webinars, where we'll go into deep dives into these different solutions that we presented today. Thank you very much, and please make contact. Feel free to write us directly or through a contact line so we can support you. Thanks for joining today, and look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.